Welcome to the Good Talk Podcast, where we remind you of the joy of life, the love of God, and the possibilities that lie ahead. Pete and Jordyn here with episode 73.
How often do you finish this sentence?
Ooh, it's like a title and a question.
I always try to steer Pete away from these titles that are like abstract and artsy because no one knows what it means.
It's about.
And I lost the battle today, but it is a fun title, but we literally have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. So I like artsy titles that don't actually tell you what it's about.
I know, you do.
It intrigues me. Those are the ones I click on.
Well, see, I'm the opposite. I like the ones that are like, we're talking about blank, and this is what we're going to, like, it's just super clear.
Well,
but
it's super clear. We're talking about how often do you finish this
ambiguous sentence that no one knows what
You want to know what the
about.
sentence is?
What is the topic?
I can't tell you.
Oh, my gosh.
You have to wait.
Okay, well, here we are. So we'll wait.
How often do you finish this sentence?
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to it in just a second.
Okay.
But first, we had a great Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, it was a long weekend. We did lots of stuff. We
Oh
did lots of football.
Yes.
Between your boys and college football. I mean, there's lots of games.
Yeah, first time ever. All these years I've had boys playing high school football. A game got canceled.
Well, but it didn't just get canceled. It was like on delay. So you guys, I had to leave with Pepper early, but you guys were there till like 11:30 at night.
11:30 at night.
Because they kept
finally
delaying
canceled it.
Yeah.
We only got in half the game. So we had to go back on Saturday afternoon and finish the second half.
Yeah, which is so hard because you don't have the momentum or like, anyway.
It was not the same.
It wasn't, but lots of football. We also did our very first like overnight trip with Pepper, which
To the
I
farm.
was, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, to the farm.
Yeah.
We've done lots of overnight trips, but not to the farm. And the reason the farm is such a unique like challenge is because it's a one-room cabin that we have out on the farm. And that's really cozy and fun and like novel when it's just like adults and bigger kids. But when you got a baby that you're sharing a space with that has to go to sleep at 7 p.m., that's a challenge. But we took her up. She loved it.
She did awesome.
She
She
did-
loved the animals.
Loved it. The animals, the creek. She just tromped around in the big open grass. We live in a neighborhood now that doesn't have really big yards. So she just literally just ran and just had the time of her life. But we successfully got her to sleep in the cabin. We somehow did not go back in the cabin after she went to bed until it was time for us to go to bed, which is what you want to do when you're out on the farm anyways, just be outside. But it was good.
And I got my dove hunt in.
Yep, you had a dove hunt with the boys.
Every year, annual dove hunt with the boys and their friends. So they bring their friends out. We do a big dove hunt. And then we grill up the dove and have a little man feast.
A really little man feast because dove don't make very much
No,
meat.
you got
They're
it.
literally like tiny little
Nuggets.
Little nuggets. It's fun.
But they're good because we wrap cheese around them
And bacon.
and bacon and a jalapeno. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, I think it's just to like essentially just not taste the dove.
Probably. But it's still really good. Dove meat is really good. And that, for some reason, that dove hunt for me is always like the kickoff of fall because it's usually around Labor Day, beginning of September. And it's just like, fall is here. It's
like
a
it.
fun little guy thing for us to do.
Well, we had a good long weekend. Hope y'all did too. That always, like you said, it kind of is like this subtle kick into fall, even though it's 90 degrees out today. I am so ready. I have a skull pillow on our couch already. There's like little things that keep slipping in our house. And Pete's like, wait, is that Halloween? No, it's just a skull or it's just a ghost Halloween pillow.
She decorates for Halloween in like little
shifts.
Yeah, little sprints.
Because I just really want to do it all. And so I'm trying to like not be obnoxious and do it too early, but I already started. So I'm doing it all this weekend.
We're like,
Full
7 weeks away?
Yeah, I'm doing it full blown this weekend. I don't even care. I don't care. Judge me.
And like some of it you can't hide either. Like we have is it a 12-foot tall skeleton?
Yeah.
A 12-foot tall skeleton that goes in the front of our
yard.
house.
Yeah. Well, I'm not doing that yet. I'm going to wait till the end of September so people don't judge me from the outside. I'm just going to sit in peace and love my interior Halloween decor. It'll be on the podcast next week if you watch. So I'm very sorry if you're offended by my bats and skulls that are going to be behind us after this. But anyways, how often do you finish this sentence? I need to know what the stinking sentence is.
How often do you finish this? See, there it is. You're already
Yeah,
intrigued
you're proving
by
your
this
point.
whole thing. Now, this is a really important topic that I hope will be kind of a mind shift for some of you. And it really comes down to, and this isn't the question yet, but it's how often do you let yourself feel proud of what you're doing and what you're accomplishing, who you're becoming as a person? How often do you allow yourself to feel that way? Is it as often or equal to the time you spend thinking about where you can improve and where you aren't measuring up and where you didn't quite hit the nail on the head?
No.
So here it is. You ready?
Yeah.
How often do you finish this sentence? I'm doing a good job at blank.
Not often. Because
So
I
do
feel
it
like
right
it's
now.
always a striving.
Yeah, do it right now. Just right now, answer this question. I'm doing a good job at blank. List as many things as you can.
This is okay. So to be completely fair and honest, I didn't know what the sentence was, but you told me yesterday, like, hey, think of a few things you feel like you're doing well at. You didn't tell me why. So to be honest, I would not probably be able to even list one or two things right now if just put on the spot, because I'm that way. Like I don't think that way.
Yeah.
You always feel like you're kind of
Most
in the
people
middle. Okay, so the ones I thought of that I don't even feel comfortable saying out loud, but I'm gonna say it because you're making me. What is it? I feel like I'm doing a good job at.
I'm doing a good job.
I'm doing
at
a good
blank.
job at. I feel like I'm doing a good job at being a mom to Pepper.
Yeah, you are.
I don't feel like that every day, but I'm just like really grateful that I get to be your mom, and I feel like I'm doing good at it just because she's mine. Like I just feel like it's easy when they're yours.
Yeah.
I'm doing a good job at exercising consistently. That was a goal of mine at the beginning of the year, and I feel like I've legitimately been as consistent as I possibly could be with a baby.
Fantastic.
So I'm proud of that, and I think I'm doing a better job at like starting to sort of like dream again about things I want to do, like not necessarily with a job, but just like ideas and dreaming. I feel like for a while I didn't have that. I didn't have the ability to really have the capacity to dream just because I was so like overwhelmed with just new mom life. And I feel like I'm doing a better job at like trying to stay inspired, trying to do new things. And some of that is through my social media because that's really my only outlet right now. But I've taken a few meetings that I normally wouldn't do, and just trying to start to really like stay inspired.
Yeah.
So those are my three.
That's great. I made a list. You want to hear?
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Now, and I'm kind of joking around, but it's incredibly uncomfortable.
It's so awkward and hard. I hate it.
I'm doing a good job at being a dad.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm doing a good job at being a husband.
Mm-hmm. I should have said that. Sorry.
No, you don't. I mean,
I don't really. Yeah. Okay.
no, I'm not saying you're not doing a good job at being a wife, but you didn't have to say that.
Okay.
I feel like I'm a good coach.
Yeah.
I work really hard to stretch my clients.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a good communicator. I'm good at communicating.
Yep.
I'm a good problem solver. I'm good at balancing my career and family. And I'm really, really proud of that.
You are.
I'm really, really proud of because that has not always been the case.
Mm-hmm.
And so I work really hard at that work-life balance.
You do. You do a good job.
And I'm proud of who I've become. I feel like I really am, that I'm doing a good job. I'm proud of the transformation in my life.
Yeah.
And proud of the things I'm getting to work on, the people I get to work with.
Yeah.
I really am. I feel like I'm doing a good job. And I'm trying to tell myself those things more often.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to really breathe in these things, let them sink deep into my chest and to who I am, to say, yes, this is who I am. And then I'm going to go out and operate in the world as that.
It kind of feels like like with the toddler when you just give them positive reinforcement because you want them to embody it.
Yeah.
It's like even by telling yourself all those things, like I am a consistent exerciser. I am a good dad. It's like you're making that true just by believing it about yourself. You know, like it's just an encouragement in and of itself subconsciously.
Well, we've talked about this so many times on this podcast, but your life is moving in the direction of your most powerful thoughts.
Yeah.
Christianity backs that up. Modern psychology backs that up. Like So, and that's not just true about the thoughts that you have about the things you're working on. It's true about yourself as well. That's why I can't even remember the name of the podcast, but we did a podcast not that long ago. We talked about those 3 questions for a created world. How am I creating myself? How am I creating others? How am I creating the world around me?
Yeah.
With my thoughts.
Right.
And all that lands under how am I creating myself? And it's an important part, I think, of any kind of daily routine. How are you showing up to the world?
Yeah.
Are you showing up with this energy of negativity and all the things you don't have yet in your life, or all the things that you feel like you're not? Or are you showing up as your true whole self, focusing on the things that you're actually doing good at?
Yeah.
I just think it's so easy to find all the ways that we need to do better, all the places that we need improvement, where we have less than we want, where we aren't as accomplished as we want to be. And our list of things that we aren't proud of can be just as long, if not longer, right?
Yeah.
It's harder to choose pride. It's harder to find the things that, we really are proud of, to say the words out loud, just like you just did and I just did. I am proud.
Why do you think that is, though?
Why do you think it's so hard?
Yeah.
I think,
why do we struggle with that? Why is that so? Because I just think about, as a mom or as a friend or as a wife, I want the people that I love the most to be so proud of themselves and to say that out loud. And then you're right. I can't, it's really hard for me to say that about myself. And is it just because we think we're positioning ourselves as superior in some way? What is that? I can't even articulate what that is.
I don't have a whole lot to back this up, but I have a couple kind of hypothesis. Is that right?
Hypotheses? Yeah,
Hypotheses?
Sure.
I knew it's one of those words it's there, but
hypothesis is correct. I think the plural of it is hypotheses.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So I have a couple of one I think is kind of built into us from hundreds and hundreds of generations of our ancestors who, didn't have the privileges we have today, right? They were constantly on the run. They were constantly being hunted down. They were, so they were. Then that's our history is you didn't want to stand out.
Okay.
The more you stood out, the more you were a target. So we kind of learned generation after generation after generation to kind of stay quiet, keep your head down. But I think there's a couple things in our culture today that really feed this. One would be religion. I think some people, grew up hearing certain verses that were either taken out of context or just misunderstood. You heard things like, well, pride, the Bible says pride comes before the fall.
Right.
Or this is a big one in the New Testament, God resists the proud but exalts the humble. And so a lot of us grew up in a religious structure that really hammered this idea in of don't be prideful. That is one of the big nasty sins that you're not going to find favor from God from. So, and this would probably be a good time to point out, if you haven't already caught on to this, I believe there is unhealthy pride being an inflated view of yourself, but then there's also healthy pride, which is an accurate view of yourself. Now, are there some of you listening right now that maybe struggle with an inflated view of yourself? Yeah, for sure. I'm sure there's some people right now that are listening to this that struggle with that. But the vast majority of people don't struggle from having an inflated view of themselves. They struggle from having a deflated view of themselves. They focus on all the negative things, all the things they've yet to accomplish and do, the transformation they still need to kind of go through. So that's one of the big reasons I would say is we kind of grew up with some religious structures that lean towards this idea that pride is bad. But we're not talking about an unhealthy pride. We're talking about a healthy pride. The second big reason, I think, is that a lot of people are afraid that if they focus on what they're proud of, if they focus on what they are accomplishing, that they'll actually become complacent and they won't keep growing. So a lot of us think what keeps us moving, what keeps us succeeding, what keeps us doing better at work, what keeps us doing better with our families, what keeps us, winning approval from the church or for whatever, is focus on the person you're not yet. And that's what's going to motivate you to do better and to be better.
I think that's so true. I think about exercise, because I wouldn't say out loud right now, I'm really proud of myself for exercising consistently. I set that goal, because in my mind, I'm still not to where I want to be physically. And so it's like, if I say that out loud, it's somehow saying I'm done. I've reached the pinnacle, And I don't know why that is, but it's true. It's like you somehow think that declaring a pride in a position is the definite version of that position.
Yeah.
And it's so not. It's such a good point. Because we don't really allow ourselves to be fully proud until we think we've reached the end of whatever journey we were on.
Yeah. I'll set up this concept. It's called the gap versus the gain. I don't think we've talked about this on the podcast before. I don't know why, because this is something that I coach my clients on in coaching all the time. And it's a huge concept. So if you're just listening to this podcast right now, I don't have a visual or anything, but let me kind of create a visual. Like, picture a piece of paper, and at the top of the paper, you write down the word ideal. Like, that's your ideal. That's a person you want to become. That's the amount of money you want to be making. That's the position you want at your work. It's the ideal. Then in the middle of the paper, write down the word achievement. And then at the very bottom, write the word start. So you have start at the bottom, achievement in the middle, ideal at the top.
Okay.
Now, what happens for the vast majority of people, and this kind of comes down to why we're so uncomfortable talking about I'm doing a good job at blank, is most people live in what they call the gap. And the gap is that space between achievement and the ideal, right? And you kind of get focused in on that. You're always focused on the ideal. You measure the distance between what you have achieved to the ideal. So there's always a gap there. Always, no matter how much you have achieved, there's always that gap there. There's always more work to do. The problem with this, people think that would motivate you. It doesn't motivate you long term. It leads to failure, frustration, disappointment, low self-esteem, guilt, depression. The list goes on and on. Even the progress you're making, because you're probably making progress in all those different ideal categories, right? Feels like a letdown. That's the way it feels when you're in the gap. You're always behind. You never feel like you're enough. You're never making enough. You're never doing enough. You're never being enough. You're living in that gap.
Yeah.
And it's not a motivating place to be. But you don't have to live in the gap. You can live in the gain. And the gain has the same elements, right? So picture the piece of paper. You have ideal at the top, you have achievements in the middle, and you have start at the very bottom, right? The big difference is you don't measure and focus on the ideal. You measure yourself backwards from where you are today, the achievements that you have today, against where you were before, where you started. And what this actually does is it leads to success and satisfaction and confidence and higher self-esteem and enjoyment and optimism and ultimately pride, which is what we're talking about. Because you're focusing on the gain, right? Yeah. Not the gap.
Right.
And the reality is for everyone listening to this, maybe you're not at your ideal. Maybe you're not at the position you want to be in your work. Maybe you haven't become the person you want to become. But the reality is you still made some huge improvements.
Yeah.
And if you're always focused on that gap, that distance between where you are now and where you want to be, it just becomes this big discouragement. So that the idea here is to focus on the gain. Focus on the gain versus that gap.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Sorry, we have a cat that's just going absolutely berserks right now. She told me before we started the podcast, listen, if the cat freaks out, don't mention it. I'm like, I can't help it. I start sweating. I literally, I don't even know this is the most quiet cat. But when we go to record a podcast, he goes berserk. He goes nuts.
Keep talking. I'm going to let him out.
Oh, please.
This is just
for the love of all that is holy. I mean, the cat's running around the house. It's moaning. It's like scratching furniture.
It's so weird, too, because he's really not like that.
Thank you for coming back to the podcast.
That's the real life. I could totally cut this and edit it, but I'm not, because this is real. This is our life. No, yeah. Anyways, so gap and gain.
Yeah. So it's about, living in the gain instead of the gap.
Yeah. That's hard to do.
It is. It's very hard to do because we, in so many ways, we have been trained through job interviews and quarterly reviews and all kinds of things to focus on the gap. Mm-hmm. But that's not where you're going to get your day-to-day motivation to keep moving, to keep growing, to keep changing, to keep trying, you're not going to find it there.
Yeah, that's good.
But most people's fears, if they focus on the gain instead of the gap, they're going to become complacent. I have not found that to be true, and most of the studies that have been done don't find that to be true either. So I want to go back to the sentence because I really want everybody to take a moment. If you need to hit pause for a second, hit pause so you can journal or write this down or whatever. But right now in my life, I'm doing a good job at blank. I want everybody to answer that. Right now in my life, I'm doing a good job at blank. Write it down. Say it out loud. Allow yourself to feel it. Again, let yourself feel proud. You have to do it now. You cannot wait until you arrive at the ideal because it doesn't work that way. You're probably never going to get there.
That's not encouraging.
Can't wait. If you wait until the ideal before you find and have pride in yourself, then it doesn't work that way. Yeah. You need that. There are a lot of steps between where you are right now and where you want to be. And focusing on the gap is not going to get you there. You have to find a healthy way to have an accurate view of yourself and an accurate view of your accomplishments and remind yourself of who you are. Remind yourself how far you've come. Remind yourself all the hard things you've done up to this point.
Yeah.
Not all the things you still have left to do.
It's really good. That's so true. And we don't do it.
No. And this is also an activity that helps you stay in the present and not always be living in the future for what you need to be doing, what you need to be accomplishing. You can do this in the present right now. You can be proud with, I'm doing a good job right now at blank.
Yeah, that's good. And it gives you the mindset and confidence and courage to continue to tackle it. You know, like if you always feel like you're not enough, you're not going to be in the headspace, right?
Yeah.
To like really get to where you want to be. So I think that also has a unique benefit to it too.
And you got to do this for yourself. Nobody else can do this for you. In fact, almost everything else in culture is going to force you to focus on the gap because that's what makes you buy books. It makes you go to conferences. It makes you want this car or that. Like all advertisement and marketing is going to get you to focus on the gap instead of the game. Make you always think you need something else. You need to be more. And so, man, I want to be the opposite of that. I want to be the person that comes along next to you and says, "Hey, nope, you're not at your ideal yet. That's okay. But look how far you've come. Let's celebrate that. You're not who you were a year ago or 2 years ago. Hopefully." Right? There's been some changes. There's been some improvements. There's some things you've read. There's some exercise you've done. You know, I want to really come alongside people and encourage them to say, look how far you've come. Look what you're doing.
So I have a question, and this might throw you off.
Okay.
But is there ever a healthy balance of having both mentalities? So to say, like, look where I have come. I've done all these things, but I still really need to get here. Like,
Absolutely.
Is there ever that balance, or are you saying like to only really live in that?
No, it's both and. It's again, that's why I wish I had actually drawn out like an actual like physical drawing of all this, but that's why the ideal is still there. When you the three elements of ideal, achievements, and start are all there. It really comes down to what are you focusing on, and are you taking the time to celebrate the steps that you are taking and finding some healthy pride in who you are, who you're becoming, what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So when you said earlier, I'm a good mom, right? That's a very true statement. You are a good mom, and you need to celebrate that, and that should motivate you. But it's not motivating you to stay content. It's motivating you to say, but there's also some other things I could be doing. Like it makes you want to be a better mom.
Yeah.
Right? But it's a whole different energy because now you're coming out of an energy of abundance of look what I'm doing, look how I'm changing, you know, and I want to keep doing more and becoming better and growing and learning instead of coming with this energy of I'm not enough and I'm a terrible person. And there's no energy in that.
That's
None.
good. That's good. I like that comparison. That's helpful. That's good.
So that's my 2 cents today.
How often do we finish that sentence? Never. Now we need to. We need to do it like weekly. It's like a good like journal, like kicking off your journal. Like the gratitude and then I am proud of myself for.
Every morning I ask myself those 3 questions. How am I creating myself? How am I creating others? How am I creating the world? And under how am I creating myself, part of that is saying, how am I showing up today? Another thing I would list, I'm a good friend. Like, I care deeply about my friends. Like, I'm going to show up to the world today knowing I'm a good friend, right? I'm a good husband. That's the energy I want to bring to my day and things that are before me. And I don't want that to lead to any kind of contentment. I want that to fill me up so I can continue to grow, because I know I haven't hit the ideal in any one of those categories. I have plenty of room to grow as a coach, plenty of room to grow as a communicator, plenty of room to grow as a husband. Don't say amen. Plenty of room. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it motivates me.
Yeah, no, it's good. I like it. It makes sense. It's again, one of those subconscious flips in your brain. Actually, it's very conscious. It's not even subconscious.
I think I won you over because I think you weren't believing me at first.
Well, I had to understand the balance part, because I know there are some people who are motivated differently. Like in sports, I was always motivated by a coach who was kind to me than like a yelling coach. But some people are motivated by that yelling coach. And so I was thinking like, well, there might be people out there who are motivated by that gap. But I understand now what you mean by when you're living in the game, you still are pursuing those things. It's just you're pursuing them more full and energized versus trying to pursue them in the gap mentality, which is very empty.
Yeah. The gap can be motivating, but it's short-term motivation. It will not sustain you long-term, because it always creates this vicious cycle of I'm not enough. And again, the ideal here, we don't need to go get into all that, but the ideal is always moving. So if you're always measuring yourself from the achievements up, right, what you haven't done, there's no achievement you're ever going to have that's going to bring satisfaction. You have to learn to be okay with where you're at today and say, I'm exactly where I need to be.
It's good. Very good. We're going to finish that sentence more.
Yes, we are. Daily.
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 Everybody, daily. All right. Well, thank you. That was super helpful. If you guys know somebody who would enjoy that, family, friends, or like complete strangers on your social media, if you'd like to share it, we have some awesome sharers from our podcast that we absolutely love. They always share our episodes with people, and that is so helpful. And also just why we do this. So we're just happy that it's helpful in some way, shape, or form. So please like, subscribe, follow, share, do all the things, and we will continue to put this podcast out into the world, hopefully to continue to encourage you guys. So thank you, Pete.
Thank you. And that was another good talk.